Look, if you're not failing, more often, then you're basically not pushing the envelope. And so we are constantly looking at better ways. I'll give you an example. So if we deploy a major release and we have some bugs in there that you would consider failure, then the QA process needs to be looked at in a much better way, right? So how can we be innovative in finding more testing scripts and more ways to cover our product, so that if it does go into production with these types of bugs, we're pretty well foolproof on it. So that's an example of something that, you don't want to test anything out in production. So the thought process there is that you want to be really innovative about, testing the limits of failure inside of your test sites. And so really important to us to embrace failure. It really could be anything, right? It could be marketing ideas.
Welcome to Grow Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow? Innovation. It's not just a buzzword. It's something you probably think about a lot within your company. How do you create more innovation within your culture? Well, it takes a special style of leadership and really a lot of intention around what innovation is. Innovative companies have a different relationship with failure. We're going to look at that in today's episode. We have the CEO of Reputation.com, Joe Fuca. Joe is going to share with you some of the concepts that they've used over the years to create a category of their own. Really exciting, information around how do you actually create this category within your business, why it's necessary for you to be in your own category versus kind of included in with your competitors. But when you have your own category, it requires you to innovate beyond the pace at which you probably are innovating now. So we look at that culture of innovation. We also talk about some of the things he's changed inside of his style of leadership that have allowed this to happen. And finally, we looked at, what did he change in the light of COVID when everyone's remote? That one simple change has really energized the company around the value that they're creating in the marketplace. You'll get all that in today's interview. Before we get into Joe's interview, make sure you download the free training available to you. Well, actually, you don't have to download it, but when you go to genehammett.com/training, you'll get this concept on how do you create a team of A players. Joe says in the interview, you want to hire your best players, but you want to also develop your best players. So this is all about you becoming a stronger leader and leading people to have a feeling of ownership. Just go to genehammett.com/training. Now here's the interview with Joe. Joe, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you today, Gene?
Fantastic. We're going to talk about leadership and culture in this journey of growth you've been on. I want the audience to know a little bit about the company. So tell us about Reputation.com.
Sure. Reputation.com was founded in 2006, which just seems like a long time ago, Gene. The company was founded as a consumer product focused on helping people understand and protect their reputation online. In 2013, the company decided to rebuild the platform using some of that functionality and target really large Global 2000 companies to protect their reputation and essentially build out a platform so that you understand everything your customers are saying about you. So companies like General Motors, like Ford, like Kaiser Permanente, like Greystar, like Loan Depot, these companies in different industries that care about what their consumers are saying and what their patients are saying. And so the company shifted in 2013. And so literally from 2013 to 2020 is really the current company. We had sold off the original company back in 2017. And so the current Reputation.com is all focused on enterprise customers.
So it's basically listening to what's going on online, maybe social media, and being able to organize that through your data sciences to create something that is actionable for these brands.
Yeah. So if you think about listening posts, you want to think about people leaving reviews. You want to think about people answering surveys, social posts. There's probably, 11 different listening posts that you really care about. The key is to be able to access what we call the data in the wild, which is what's called non-structured data. And the whole idea there is, how do I get all the feedback from consumers that are leaving me, reviews that I don't ask them to? So in other words, it's real unsolicited feedback. You could have customers that send surveys and answer questions a certain way, and you think you're doing really good. But if you get unsolicited feedback that counters that, then you really got something. And so that's what we specialize.
Love that. Well, Joe, you have been a CEO of this company through, various iterations, and you have, really seen that you've got to create something that, a category that you create yourself. Tell us a little bit about this, creating your own category.
Yeah, no problem. So I've been the CEO for Reputation.com for 2 years. So not unsurmountable length, but came into the company, and Reputation.com was sort of this dominant player in this thing called online reputation management. But it wasn't really a defined category where people like had a Gartner quadrant or a Forrester Wave or what have you. And then there's this other market called the CX market, where you've got Qualtrics and Medallia and some other, well-defined companies in this thing called this customer experience space. And so when we looked at both those spaces, we were like, look, we are the perfect model for something in between those two spaces. We call it where the marketing team and the customer experience team come together. And so we thought the best thing to do is to come up with our own category called Reputation Experience Management, so called RXM. And we thought the best thing to do is to go all in on that category. And the reason we did it, frankly, is, Gene, when I was at DocuSign back in 2011, we were about 150 employees and maybe 25 million in revenue. And we were known as this thing called e-signature. And one of the things that Keith Crock and I got together on was we just basically said, hey, why would e-signature trigger any kind of, real market size with real marketing traction and analyst traction? And it didn't. So we came up with, in 2012, something called digital transaction management, because the power of the e-signature was actually just a piece of the entire digital transaction. And so when we created the DTM space, we created it from scratch. And it takes a lot of work. And so one of the things that we did is, we started creating analyst attraction, our customers speaking about it. And so, to be honest with you, Gene, I had the groundwork done for me before, right? So I'm just repeating some of the best practices there.
When you think about this, as it relates to leadership, what you're really talking about is creating innovation within your space. How do you lead others to be innovative?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we really want to do is create a culture inside of the company to be innovative. And by the way, it could be anything. It could be relative to the new space and category we're building, or how about just our own company and being diverse and having inclusion, groups and that type of thing. So when I think of innovation, I think of, the key thing, what we've done is we have an executive advisory board where we took some of the biggest customers we had, we pulled them together. We said, hey, what do you guys think about this space? What do you think about this category? And when they all kind of jumped in, biggest companies in the world saying, this is exactly what you guys should be doing, because there is a difference between some of the two spaces that are out there. And they got supportive. And so that innovative thinking around our executive advisory board then trickled into my chief technology officer, my chief data officer, and those two then started to think out of the box on how do we take that kind of thinking to the platform. So that's what we did. We used our executive advisory board. We bounced some things off of some analysts in the industry, and then we started to create innovation inside of our company around that category.
What would we see inside of your organization on a regular basis when it comes to innovation? Do you guys have different kinds of brainstorming groups, or do you do anything unique around innovation?
Yeah, we do. It's kind of fun. It depends on your definition of innovation. But we have a data science group that basically looks at massive volumes of data and then tries to figure out, through natural language processing, how do we make this sort of what I always call English proof? And instead of sounding like Spanish or some foreign language, how do I make it actionable? And so what we've done as a team is we have these hackathons where we inspire different groups throughout the company to come up with ideas on how to look at that data, how to work with our data science group in order to make it even look more English-like. And so, between doing the hackathons, the engineering contests, we try to do some things we use this tool called Slack, and we have different groups, and we have these innovation groups, and we try to have contests around it. So it's actually something that is really important to the company that we stay on the edge and thinking about this. That way we're constantly being innovative.
Hold on for a second. Joe just talked about hackathons. Now, you may not have thinking about that because you don't have a software company like Joe does, but hackathons aren't just for software companies. In fact, you can have hackathons around the processes in which your companies are growing to the next level, or how you're going to better serve your clients. Maybe it's a hackathon around marketing or sales. What I know for sure is when you include your people into decisions, it has a chance to bond them together, create more connection between them. Hackathons would be a great thing to do in a virtual environment because it would require people to be collaborative. And for you to do that, maybe get out of their normal day-to-day workload that really help them become more connected to the work, and maybe even have hackathons around how are we going to move forward and grow from here? Or maybe have hackathons around what are we going to do within the culture of the company? Those are just some ideas that you can take from this if you don't have a software company. If you do, of course, you know what a hackathon is. Make sure you're doing that during the times of COVID. Back to Joe. I think a lot of companies want to be innovative and they want their employees to be innovative, but yet they haven't embraced this sense of failure. I think innovation companies have to have a very positive relationship with failure. What is it like there for you at reputation.com?
What's your term, positive?
So if you try to avoid failure, right? If you avoid failure all the time, you'll never have innovation, right? You'll play it too safe,
you're right.
risk averse. So how do you actually get people to embrace the fact that failure is just part of the journey as you innovate?
Yeah. Look, if you're not failing, more often, then you're basically not pushing the envelope. And so we are constantly looking at better ways. I'll give you an example. So if we deploy a major release and we have some bugs in there that you would consider failure, then the QA process needs to be looked at in a much better way, right? So how can we be innovative in finding more testing scripts and more ways to cover our product, so that if it does go into production with these types of bugs, we're pretty well foolproof on it. So that's an example of something that you don't want to test anything out in production. So the thought process there is that you want to be really innovative about testing the limits of failure inside of your test sites. And so really important to us to embrace failure. It really could be anything, right? It could be marketing ideas. I would say that we've had some challenges, right? We opened up a couple of markets in Europe that were not the right markets to open up. We opened up Spain and Italy early in our life cycle. Probably not the best countries to go to because of language support, foreign country support, currency, those types of things, data rules. And so we have a very large business in the UK and Germany, but expanding outside was a big mistake. So we shut those down. So it's an example of, okay, we tried something, we failed, boom, we shut it down, we move on, right? And so that's an example. It's a pretty good example of failing and then making adjustments.
Joe, when you think about leading this team, and I know you said a couple of years, what are the things that you think have really defined your own style of leadership?
Yeah, I think one of the things that the company with the best people wins. It's a big motto that I've always felt that was important. There's two things that we wanted to really install in our company. One is hire the best people, and we will always have a positive outcome. The second big thing is build to last. Many people don't think about building to last when they start a software company or they're growing really fast. And you always hear the term about changing the tires while you're on the freeway, and you're actually going fast. But if you really think about those two principles, right? You hire the best people, and then you make sure that your decisions are built to last, then you've got something. And if you don't, show that leadership. So what does that mean? Like scalable platform, spending the extra money to be able to have all the test sites that we can, to be able to show the kind of volumes that we get with the biggest companies in the world running on our platform, right? So build to last is a big decision. It's an investment for the future. Some people might say, well, why are you doing that now? Well, it's really important that we do that now so that we can have the data privacy in Germany, so that we can roll out to some of the biggest German companies, right? So you're always those are kind of the big two themes, hire the best people and then always build the last decision.
Now, hold on for a second. Joe just talked about hire the best people. Well, you know that that's important, right? Most of the time, though, people aren't hiring the best people. They hire who's available. In this job market, maybe you've got a little bit more choices around who you can hire. So you might want to look at hiring the best people, what that would really do. Do you have to pay a little bit more money for the best people? Absolutely. Do you have to create a different working environment for the best people? Absolutely. Your leadership would be challenged because the best people don't want to work with people that are mediocre. These A players really do want to push the boundaries of what they're doing. They want to grow, and you have to create a space for that. But here's the thing. It helps the company grow. It helps you serve your customers. It helps the bottom line. Having the best people and hiring the best people really is an important aspect of growing your business. Back to Joe. I want to get personal with you, Joe. As a leader, we've all been through defining moments. You had mentioned to me that when you took over this role, you felt invaluable to have sort of a CEO coach, someone that has been there before you, that can guide you through this. What is one big lesson or perspective shift you had from having a CEO coach?
I'm pretty sure it's not one. One of the things that I thought was, you know how you make a couple of good moves, you make a couple of challenging moves. One of my good moves was the first thing I did was hire a CEO coach, and he had been a CEO of a company that had, for over 13 years. So he had really the experience of taking somebody from 5 million in revenue all the way to 100 million in revenue, and then having an outcome where he sold that company to a much bigger company. So his experience in dealing with board members, investors, the concept of, themes, how about mergers and acquisitions? You start thinking about all of the different pieces that go in. I would say up until about 5 months ago, he had experienced everything that I had experienced. Unfortunately, no CEO coach on earth has experienced COVID-19. And I don't know why I'm laughing, because it's obviously stressful. But the concept of, small business loans, COVID-19, should we shut down the offices? These are things that my CEO coach did not know. And we had some good chats about it. It's always good to have a second person to bounce things off of. But I'll tell you, COVID-19 has definitely thrown a wrinkle in anybody's perspective to be able to look at it. But I would say the most positive thing having the CEO coach is I've looked at a couple of companies that I potentially was going to acquire, and he gave me a really good methodology to look at that company in a much different way, and it really helped me to say no on a few. And so it was really, really beneficial for me.
Let me break in here for a second. If you're listening on YouTube, make sure you give us a thumbs up. We'd love for you to signal to the YouTube algorithm that this content is worthy. Why is it worthy? Well, if you like it, they'll know it's worthy. So give us that thumbs up. Also, we'd love for you to subscribe. Make sure you don't miss an episode of the podcast. We are trying to build this channel up so we can better serve you as a leader. Make sure you do that now. I used to do mergers and acquisitions, and we said no a lot more than we said yes on those things. But I think CEOs just see the opportunity, because by default, most CEOs are very optimistic, right?
Yeah, we are. And we think everything can merge, this is going to be great.
I can turn that around. But I really appreciate you sharing with me. I wanted to ask you one final question. Getting your employees to think like, how do we continue this category of that we own? How have you been able to continue that across the last couple of years of leadership?
Yeah, I think one of the things that, we've done is we've actually added a couple of interesting things. We not only we're creating this category, but as an employee base, we said, all right, what can we do in the different groups of the company, whether it's marketing, whether it's sales, whether it's customer success, or whether it's engineering? What are some ideas that we can continually feed off of this? And so one thing we do during COVID-19, by the way, was I created this thing called an all hands meeting every Friday. Now, I know all hands meeting is not a creation, but my point is most companies don't get together every Friday. Well, with everybody external like this, I was like, all right, let's just do it. Like every single Friday, we're getting on a Zoom with 430 people. We're going to talk about different topics. And it has really helped us as a company, the culture. And one of the topics we cover in every single Friday meeting is example RXM, reputation experience management customer story. And so each week we tell a story. And by the way, it could be the engineering group telling the story. It could be the customer success group, whatever, talking about how somebody went live with this type of suite of technology and how did that help build value for that company. And so, yeah, we've done that. It's been a lot of fun. One of the other things I've done during COVID-19 is we've started a diversity, inclusion, and belonging team. And man, that's really opened up a lot of different perspectives. You know, I've always been a big believer as a leader that if I hire all the same people and they all look the same, they all do the same, then you're not getting a whole lot of new thinking. And so by adding this group with different areas around the company, it's really starting to bring some new ideas into the company. And so I'm really excited about a couple of things that we've done during this pandemic period.
I love that idea. And, you know, just parroting on what you said, you can't have innovation if you have all the same thought. If you have all the same background, experience, and view of life, rarely ever are you going to have the innovation that you could have under the right, you know, kind of diversity. Joe, thank you so much for being on the podcast, sharing your wisdom with us.
Yeah, no problem. Appreciate it.
What a great interview. Love having Joe on the podcast today to talk about a culture of innovation. When you think about leading others to innovate beyond where they are today, do you have a clear step-by-step plan? Do you have an understanding of what is it going to take to create innovation inside your company? Well, one of the things I do is work with leaders to create. If you're curious about where your next step is, you're not exactly sure, let's get on the phone together. Let's have a conversation about your next step as a leader. Just send me an email, gene@genehammett.com. When you think about growth and you think about leadership, make sure you think about Growth Think Tank. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.